Are Mom and Dad at the frat party? Leader Fan Radio Network.
BEERRUN, Beer Run.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 38 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock. That's Central Daylight Time. No, Central Standard Time. Bumper to Bumper Show returns. It is a Tuesday edition of the program. A pretty nice day, right? I mean, chilly.
I think it's a great
sunny.
day.
I mean, it's hard to argue with it given
47?
the fact that it is November 12. We're halfway through November.
It's almost Thanksgiving.
Can't even believe it. And yet here we are, not a snow. There's no snow on the ground that I can see. Is there any part of the state of Minnesota that has standing snow on the ground right now?
Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686.
Please let us know. We'd love to hear from you and keep us posted. And by the way, if you're talking to us from the tractor today, let us know. This late, what would you be on the tractor doing if you had a farm?
Joyriding?
I don't know. I'm wondering. Is it all? I mean, we passed all that point, like the harvest and everything is done, right?
We probably should be. Yeah.
I'm not a great farm mind. I don't think you're a great agricultural mind either.
Yeah, I saw the question coming.
But we'll certainly take some help from the audience on both of those issues and so much more before we wrap things up today. 6:30.
6:30 today.
6:30 again, second straight day.
Yeah.
Going the distance. Whew,
we've got a 5:45 coming up later in the week.
Just grueling is what it is. 2 scheduled guests today, is that correct?
Yes.
And that will be Kevin Seifert in studio at the bottom of this hour. And then our first visit in a while, really since the Wolves playoff run last year, with former college basketball coach Tom Crean, who, of course, coached Anthony Edwards in college. Knows him well, and he kind of became a good conduit into the Anthony Edwards psyche to an extent last year, and more generally, the team, basketball, and what he saw from the Wolves, what he thought had to get better, what he thought was making them get on the road they were on last year, which was to the conference finals. And obviously, we have not talked to him since the Wolves made that big trade right before the start of training camp. So we'll check in with him. And there's a couple of other items I'd like to get into with Tom Crean. I'm actually curious to find out what he thinks. He coached at IU.
Yeah.
Basketball, what he makes of the football phenomenon there, which has taken over in Bloomington, Indiana, as unlikely a possibility as that might be. There's some A-section stuff I'm going to try to squeeze in today if we indeed have time, because there's several good things I think that we finally will have the opportunity to get to. We will discuss. I don't know that I want to spend a lot of time on the big announcement by your favorite baseball team, the Minnesota Twins, that Dave St. Peter is resigning as the president of the club. He's going to have some sort of strategic advisor role to the successor.
Yes.
And that, of course, is current president of baseball operations, executive Derek Falvey. So Falvey has 2 roles in effect now, right? Is what it amounts to?
He's in charge of the club, and he's in charge of the club.
What a great way to save money. Something that right now, again, has to be arousing to Joe Pollak because he hasn't sold it yet. So that works out well for everybody. He saves a little more money, and he needs to. Lord knows that's the case. And St. Peter says this is the time. He is, I think he's been with the team. His chief executive role began in 2002, and he's been with the team for 35 years, going all the way back to internship days as an intern. I think is where he started. He did the old, buy the bootstraps guy.
Right. He worked at the Twins store at one of the malls.
Honestly, it's a story. It's obviously a story. It's newsy. I'm not pretending that it can't be or shouldn't be covered. I just don't think your average rube gives a damn. I really don't. At this point tell me about the team. Tell me about what you're going to spend. Tell me about how you can get better. Tell me how you can get out of the morass that you ended last season in, especially the last month, and really 6 weeks of the season, and where this thing's going. I don't give a rat's ass who's team president. And that's often the case, to be honest. It doesn't mean it cannot be an important role. It isn't an important role. But I think, especially given the delicate condition with the public that the Twins have right now, I don't think your average Rube cares at all. Maybe the Twins think this makes it, they've put some pieces in place that will make make it more palatable for whoever wants to own the team next if there is another owner to keep the same people in place. But there's never any guarantee on that either, right? New people often come in and they want to blaze a new trail. So we'll see where that goes. But we'll spend a little bit of time on it and get to a couple of things that have been written about it locally as well. I mentioned this is I don't know if you saw this story, but it definitely got my attention, and I had no idea how trendy apparently this is. You know, the once upon a time one could say that fall tradition at colleges, universities all across the country, some big ones, some small ones, it was about like, you know, for when it comes to parents and adults, it's like campus tours, it's welcoming speeches, it's maybe you're bringing your kid to take a look at a school, your high school kid, you know, high school's junior, and you're looking at possibilities. We're going to visit the school, you know, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Pretty, I think, traditional these days that's what you do. But apparently, there are a number of parents who say, I don't want to play by those rules anymore. When I go back to school, I want
pants and not wear pants.
I want to party. Have you heard about this?
Oh, God, yes.
This is
like family weekend, parents' weekend, dad's weekend.
I guess I hadn't realized this trend was that direction. I mean, but I knew all those weekends existed. What I guess I didn't know, according to this Wall Street Journal story, is how it's morphed from, those events all occurred before, but the parents weren't actually attending. They were too dignified and felt, well, I'm too adult to actually, in one case, literally hold the head of a female college student while she vomited into a toilet after she drank too much.
Well, you never stop being a parent.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, you never stop being a parent.
See.
You always have that nurturing instinct.
I would not want to get anywhere near that nurturing instinct if it was not my kid. If it was my kid, maybe, but then I'm not going to feel good about
takes a village
throwing up with my child.
Right.
You know, beer ponging it with my child, ganjaing it up with my child. Here's the example. University of Arizona last week, as she geared up to visit her daughter, Melissa DeLeon stuffed her Lululemon fanny pack with the bare essentials: disposable beer koozies, hair ties, drip drop hydration powder.
It's important.
And red Wet Ones wipes.
It's real. It's raw. At times, it's real raw.
Fall is the height of Parents' Weekend at colleges across America. While schools might offer campus tours, welcome speeches, mingling with professors, and other wholesome activities, many parents have other plans.
How about a beer?
They want to party. And in a twist, and this is a big twist again to me that's fascinating, many of their kids are totally cool with it.
Yeah.
I would not have been, I wouldn't call myself like, weekend partier at Wilkie Quad, Indiana University. But, I mean, like all of you at that age, you have some fun, you hit the parties. I can't imagine and I love my parents, obviously. They were great to me. They were wonderful to me. I can't give them anywhere near as much as I should in terms of attention and grace for what they did for me. But the idea of partying with my mom and dad at Wilkie Quad on kegger night, I can't imagine anything more loathsome. I would not have been close to being, myself. I'd have been worried about saying something I shouldn't say. I'd be worried about being watched the whole time. But apparently, according to DeLeon, they're so excited, the kids are, about us being there because it's a different aspect of the parental relationship.
Yep. It's a transition.
Her memory of Parents' Weekend at her alma mater, the University of Missouri, was her parents came for lunch, attended the football game, and left. Yes, that's what parents are supposed to do. That's it.
The guy is drunk.
Buy a couple meals for you. Take you grocery shopping before they leave.
Help you with your laundry.
Stock the fridge.
Yep.
Help you with the laundry. That's exactly it. Maybe buy you a couple of toys and then bye-bye. Get on the road. Back to Chicago. We'll see you. I'll see you in 6 months. Back to Elk Grove Village. But apparently, these kids say, wonderful. Over 9 parents' weekends across 3 schools, DeLeon has played beer pong and flip cup. She's braved countless filthy, toilet paperless frat house bathrooms. She once held a student's hair while she vomited. You smile and you roll with it, she said. Nicole Bite, whose twins are juniors at the University of Michigan and Wisconsin, has attended multiple parents' weekends and say day drinking and dancing, the new normal. She's 52. The mom is. You know what you're getting into. University of Michigan Parents Weekend in September. The football game started at noon, which meant you're drinking at 8:30.
At the latest.
In the morning, at the latest. There's more. There's a lot more to get to, but first.
The Fan and Two Man.
Bradshaw and Bryan, KFAN text line is on fire right now, as we used to say in the South, on fire. I don't know how you spell far in the Southern pronunciation of it. Heard it a lot back in my Dallas, Texas days. Before that, Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, I spent more time in the South than you would think. Bumper to Bumper is the name of the program. Kevin Seifert is in studio with us, starting with our next segment. Plenty of football and Vikings conversation with him. And then some basketball talk with Tom Crean at 4:30. Oh, by the way, to the question about what the is anybody on the tractor? Did you see a couple of the tweets that came in? We got a lovely tweet, which I just retweeted from Nathan of Wayland Farms, finished with a great little bit of video. Finished sunflower harvest over the weekend and still doing tillage in northwest Minnesota. How authentic is that?
As authentic as you get.
And how little can we relate to it, sadly. I just...
None of that sentence made any sense.
Does it not look like, though, authentic, blue-collar, salt-of-the-earth kind of activity? Seriously.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the video.
I'm glad they had the video.
What Nathan had to say, it's perfect. Just 5 seconds that just captures it nicely. That must be tillaging. He must be tillaging there.
I'm going to go with tillaging.
Yeah. I mean, I made up a word, but they call it still doing tillage after the, who knew, sunflower harvest. Didn't know. Did you know there was such a thing? I had no idea that there was a harvest.
I assume they did something with the sunflowers.
You did?
Yeah. And tilling, I kind of understand. We have to do that in our yard every once in a while. I don't have a tiller like that.
612 guy, regarding Parents Weekend, we are a silly and frivolous people. Parents are more interested in being friends with their children than being parents. Perpetual adolescence. Nobody wants to grow up. Nobody. While funny and amusing, this all goes to the larger parenting problem that Bill Maher often talks about. Parents wanting to be buddies with their kids and not parents. It's not good. And sometimes takes a person without kids to point this out. To quote Dan Barreiro, I weep for the future. Parents' weekend partying? This is from 651. It's back to the good old days of partying at college. Kids don't mind because they can show their parents are fun and cool. There's usually a night at the sorority or frat, and then the bar. Oh, the grocery store, new clothes, get a great meal. That also happens. It's all in the good fun. Tim, this is Tim from San Diego. In San Diego, University of Michigan, parent. Nick in St. Paul, the times they are a-changing, Dan. I'd say Gen X and younger just like to party. Enough said.
Yeah.
612 guy, one of my friends got wrote up due to the parents partying with the students in their dorms. TP2K guy, doesn't this just show the parents now who were kids in 80s, etc., just decided the decline of Western civilization? 763 guy, 38-year-old single mother of 5? Who wouldn't?
Oh, boy.
38-year-old
oh boy,
single mother of 5? That's young. It's 30. I guess that's possible. You could have a kid in college, right?
Got started early. Yep, a little early.
320 guy, these parents are still children. They're the reason this county, I think he means country, is failing. Grow up. That's from Dylan. I I wasn't comfortable drinking around parents until like 30. That's after starting drinking around 13, 14. He says, and that's not a bit. To this day,
all those texts, I think, hit the key issues. And I've gotten my own texts in those. And it's certainly like my generation of kids parent, like my parents, I think it started right around there. Not my specific parents.
Yeah, right.
But it started right around there. It starts in high school with spring break trips. It started back, in those days, and it's kind of continued. And I think it's only gotten more, what's the word? Perpetual?
I would call it preposterous, but that's just me. I understand that the old deal of you should be able to be comfortable with your kids, in a perfect world in a lot of situations. But I really am very much of a believer of you had that, find some other way to get whatever that is, and just it's not your time anymore. I just don't. It doesn't impress me. We'll see what Seifert thinks because he's about to head into that.
You know who's a big parent weekend proponent?
Who?
Is Chip Scoggins.
Well, and Lori Fisher.
Well, Lori Fisher for sure.
I mean, we know. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt Lori Fisher would be capable of hanging out at any frat or sorority party.
She looks for parent weekends, even though she doesn't have kids that go to colleges.
That's exactly right.
She wants to go find them.
Yeah.
But Chip Scoggins, every time we try to do something for Parent to Spare, we got to work it around one of the various parents' weekends at one of the various colleges that all his kids either attended or are attending now. Chip's a big parents' weekend guy.
He is. That's true.
Guy.
You're right. Late falls are great for clearing out and opening up ditches in the fields. Writes 701 guy to allow water to clear off your field in the spring and summer. Usually don't have this much time to do this, with harvest usually lasting into November. See how much we learn?
It's important.
It is important.
That's why the inbox stays open.
I'm glad. Yeah, well, there are days where it's destructive, and there are days where I think it might be instructive, I should say, as well. 507 guy, bold strategy to ask the Edina guy about fall harvest techniques.
Well, I immediately started laughing, so I think that led the witness.
You were self-deprecating to a fault.
Mm-hmm. I know my limitations.
Dan, up here in North Dakota, we're spreading fertilizer.
It's a good time to do it, I've heard.
Fertilizer. Dan, harvest about wrapped up in southwest Minnesota, writes another 507 guy. Co-ops putting on fertilizer and ANHYDROUS. How's that pronounced? Do you know?
No idea.
We are doing a little tilling? I think it's tilling without the extra L, and field work nearing completion. 651 guy, hello, new listener here. Are Common and Barreiro the same person? What the bleep is going on? You guys sound so similar. Someone explain. I've never heard that before. Are our voices starting to merge? I don't really think we sound that much alike.
Tenna B and I are always confused for the same person. Maybe.
Are you really?
Constantly.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yes, I get sent a lot of tweets meant for Tenna and vice versa.
Who is considered more tasteless box of mashed potatoes, him or you?
I think I am, but I don't think he's exotic. And I think that's part of the reason, right? We're both pretty simple.
Yeah.
We're both pretty chill.
This is from John, the mail carrier. Best part of my day, start of the peak holiday season at USPS, overwhelming today, but we power through. But your show helps. Is the beer run song the beer run song Kessler singing makes me laugh regardless. Okay, here we go.
BEERRUN, beer run.
I bet he loved Parents Weekend. Kessler.
There's no question.
Every go for a road trip for him is a Parents Weekend.
So I'm going to ask Seifert about this too before we get to Vikings. But again, maybe it is generational, like you said.
It is, and it ain't going away. It's not slowing down.
That's not your time anymore, man. It's just not. You had your time. There's a million ways to bond with your kid. Being in the middle of, like walking through vomit with 18 to 22-year-olds again doesn't make you cool. I just don't think it does. It's like, at some point, I think you look around and go, what am I doing here? This isn't my place. Let's go back to the hotel.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think a good Parents Weekend, even if you want to drink and hang out.
Right.
You tailgate the football game. You go to the football game. Maybe you go out to a dinner, have some drinks.
Boom. All that.
But when they are going back to the frat house, go back to the comfort suites.
Yes.
Go back to the Homewood suites.
It's not as fun. I'll grant you. It's probably a lot more boring. And the eye candy is probably not as impressive.
Depends on which hotel you stay at.
That's true. I guess I hadn't thought of it that way. Let's do this. Let's make this the bottom of the hour pause. We'll get Seifert to help officiate this controversy because he loves officiating. We know that, and he writes a lot about it for ESPN.com. Got to get it right. And we'll talk Minnesota Vikings with him fresh off the 12-7 victory. Was that the final?
It was.
12-7, right?
It's burned in my brain.
Over the Jacksonville, what are they, the Jaguars?
They are.
Not very good club, but we struggled. Should we care? Are we in the mode now where a victory is a victory? What are we going to do with the passing game? Lots of open questions and big ones within the division, too. And we'll have plenty of time to get to all of it. This is cheap. This is a cheap send-off here. 7'6" guy. Isn't Dan going to be in his 100s when his child is in college? That's just vicious. It's football time. Kevin Seifert is back in studio. Hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, as many of you already have, at 64686. We'll talk Vikings. We'll talk NFC North. Maybe get into some, more officiating, league-wide issues. I ran some numbers. You probably know all these numbers because you're a numbers guy. Yesterday, and let me see if I can find them here on the fly because I want to know exactly kind of what they mean about your favorite game. Because pro football has to be your favorite game because that's what you cover, right?
And
or is it not your favorite?
No, it
game?
is. It always was.
I thought you were a ball guy growing up.
I did. I was assigned to cover baseball, and I enjoyed it. But football has always been
number one on the list.
Absolutely.
I'm scrolling. A lot of this has to do with, I guess you could say, the changes to the passing game. Mm-hmm. 2024 NFL season so far. Mm-hmm. Fewest yards per catch ever. Highest quarterback completion percentage ever. Most yards per rush ever. Fewest fumbles ever. Lowest turnover percentage ever. Most 50-plus yard field goals made per game ever. Low risk, low reward offense. So are all those accurate? And secondly, if they are, what's the cosmic meaning of it all?
I don't know about the exact rankings all time, but like the general trends are absolutely accurate. And the big thing is it's a little bit of a microcosm of what we saw from the Jaguars defense against the Vikings on Sunday, which is this huge commitment among many defenses to play to prevent big plays. You could call it a shell defense, cover two, two deep safeties, whatever you call it. That is right now the top priority for many teams is to make somebody march down the field, give them the opportunity to run, which I think you referenced the running statistics there. Short passes, which leads to higher completion percentage because they're easier to complete, and those people are usually open and they're not often contested passes. And when you maybe get closer in and the shell becomes tighter, drive might stall out and you end up kicking more field goals. I think the field goal thing is a separate trend related mostly to the improvement of the skills of the kickers. And when coaches realize that what used to be as a 40-yard field goal is now as high as percentage as a 50-yard, they're going for it more often. So I think that's probably separate. But for the most part, you're seeing teams really not want to give up the big play, pushing offenses into the more dink and dunk, which are more efficient anyway, but just not leading to as many scoring plays over the course of a game.
So speaking of that kind of bracketing and deep, the shell, whatever, how does that play into what took place against Jacksonville? Because it sounds as if the Jacksonville approach was we're going to send 2.5 people at Jefferson, and we're going to take our chances on everything else, and we're going to hope that the Vikings, because they have a head coach who likes to throw downfield and a quarterback who likes to be aggressive, that they'll still be stubborn about we're getting it to JJ. We don't give a damn because That's largely where the interceptions came from. So did we won the game. So I guess you can say to that extent, we won the war. But did we lose the battle when it comes to, no, throw it to Hawkinson 10 more times. That's okay to do, or run the ball more.
Yeah, and it's hard to come down on them for not running. I mean, I think they ran 43 times in the game. They just had like 80 something plays.
That's true.
It was the most skewed. We've seen tons of examples of this where a team, will try to, play some sort of shell defense for a good portion of a game, and it'll lead to a lot of plays and ball possession. But they had the ball for like 40 some minutes. They had like 80 something plays. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how they only had 50 plays in a game. So do the math on the percentage increase there.
Don't ask us. We can't do percentages.
No, and we don't even need to. 50 to 80 is a lot. And so, it's hard to say they should have run more when they ran 43 times. And I think Aaron Jones had 18 carries or so, and your guy Cam Akers had 13, and then Sam Darnold took off like 7 times.
Even our third string runner had a few like 2 or 3 balls.
Yeah, Ty Chandler came in when the Aaron Jones rib injury was going on. So they got a lot of that in there, and Hawkinson and Josh Oliver, the 2 tight ends, combined for like 12 catches and like 120 some yards. And so you can't say that they didn't do that, but they had opportunities probably to do it more. I don't know, like the breakdown of like, was O'Connell getting impatient and wanting to go to Jefferson, or was it Darnold just not taking the cue of what the defense was giving? And Darnold did kind of say, like, I need to be better about taking what the defense is giving. So I tend to think that he kind of just pushed it. One of the interceptions maybe should have been overturned on replay. I don't know.
Yeah, the second one. The one in the end zone.
One. Right. The first one was a tip ball, but he did try to get it in.
Lieber claimed that was PI.
Maybe. It
was close. I don't know if it was
right at the 5-yard marker. Right. And so he was never really open. Like, the guy was being pretty physical to him. He really wanted to get the ball to him, and he tried, and that's what happens. And the other one, he, maybe should have put it up higher, and it's either Jefferson making an incredible leaping grab in the back of the end zone, or it's incomplete. And so that was the same thing as the previous week.
How about the 4th and 5th ones? There was one more called back, and I think there was a 5th that went right through somebody's hands.
Yeah, so there was plenty of opportunities there. And so, I don't, and people say, well, now they found the formula to beat the Vikings. Like, if you're willing to like only have your offense be on the field for 18 minutes of the game, because the Vikings have at least the ability to hold the ball for 42 minutes under those circumstances, then good luck. So there's a lot to be said, to be talked about, and be concerned about when it's now 6 turnovers in 2 games for Darnold. But in that particular case, I think they did everything right, except when they got to the red zone, they were trying to force the ball, which is not how they had moved the ball down the field.
So I'm going to ask you to play the part of the amateur psychologist who is around this team every day. We talked about this yesterday, that I think sometimes and again, it's dangerous to evaluate, facial expressions and body language. It really is. But part of what I feel like might be at work here a little bit is, JJ, when he gets frustrated, he's not like screaming at everybody. He's not Adam Thielen occasionally. He's not Chris Carter back in the day, but he doesn't hide that he's frustrated. And then I wonder if then either the coach or the QB, they get into that, man, he's JJ. He got number. We got to get it. He's too good. We got to get him the ball. And that the come to Jesus meeting has to be within any game, JJ, we're going to do what we got to do. And you got to accept this for a while and not be frustrated by it, because it's going to come around to you. We all know it will eventually, depending again on coverages. But we can't get into a Randy ratio with you, because I think for a quarterback who's not as established, Darnold, I think maybe even subconsciously there's a little bit of that well, they tell me he gets every 50-50 ball, so you know what? I'm just going to fling it.
Yeah, but then that's 2 different things, though. Like, I don't think what you're talking about has been a reaction to anything that Justin Jefferson has done or reacted to, or they've inferred from
it's self-imposed.
Yes. Or that's inferred from his behavior or whatever. I think that's just their offense. Like, their offense is best receiver in football, makes catches that other guys don't, is open when other guys aren't. That's where the read starts. And that's where the play is designed around. And we talked a lot this summer, and like Sam mentioned it, Justin mentioned it, Kevin O'Connell mentioned it, like trust Justin to come down with those catches, and he does more often than not. The ones that have been intercepted, especially this past weekend, like I don't know that I think that he should have caught any of those per se, but that's the mentality that kind of carries over. And if anything, it's aggressive to the point where like we might go on the wrong side of the line on occasion, and that could lead to a turnover. But so many multiples more will it occur that will actually come out ahead with that mentality, and it's part of the aggressiveness. It's part of the scheme that they run, the way they built the roster, and the way that they're trying to get the most out of what Sam Darnold can do.
Okay, but I still think
the come to
that
Jesus
the balance
meeting would not be like telling Justin you got to live with this. It needs to be a little bit more of nuanced of like, where else can we be looking besides him?
Okay, yeah, but I would say if we're into the culture of collaboration and communication, there is something to be said to sitting down and says, just so we're all in on this together and we understand it. There's some weeks where you're not going to get 12 catches, 165 yards, and for us to try to do that with this quarterback is a mistake. It's not helpful, and that's literally the only reason that was a ball. That ball game was a blowout.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's
100%.
There's no possible way in which that's a 5-point game. Now, ultimately, it's still a victory. We get that. But to me, you have to evaluate within the confines of what took place, and you go, that's not acceptable. If we're being honest with ourselves, that's just not going to work long term.
Right.
It's just not.
And like you could say they should have scored 30 points, but you could argue with that, but they should never have been in a spot where it was windy and it was kind of wet there yesterday. They were within one like DB of falling down.
Yeah,
on a pass of like falling behind, like not because the scheme was bad or the coverage was bad or they made a bad call. It just like something random
margin
happening.
for error being just
nothing.
One play,
and that was the
one
same
play from disaster.
And we talked about this with the Colts game 2 weeks ago. It's like they were not for Joe Flacco throwing the ball. Like they were within one score of losing that game as well, or at least having it tied and going to overtime. Well, the Colts could have gone ahead before that final one anyway, and so. They were within one score there. And so, like, that's where, maybe your offense is not going to be 100% peak efficiency at all time, but you don't want the mistakes to bring you down all the way down to the point where you're in danger of giving up a fluke loss.
Yeah, I think that part's fair. A question for Seifert, 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Now, I don't know. I felt like you were aroused by the post-game comments from the coach on we're doubling, we're tripling, we're Effenheimering down on our quarterback. I found it predictable. I found it not surprising. I found it in the classification of he ain't got nowhere else to go. He's not going to go in Mike Zimmer on the bit because that's not his personality.
Yeah.
But the truth is, Zimmer, whether it's Zimmer coaching this team or O'Connell coaching this team, there is nowhere else to go. Yeah. So to me, it's because there were people like, wow, he's really, that's going to buoy his confidence. They're really, Darnold can't be that stupid. There is no place for them to go. It is his team for better or for worse because there are no meaningful alternatives.
Well,
right?
Only in the sense that you can't, I don't think they'll just let him continue to cough up the ball continuously every game indefinitely. There would be some line where the accountability has to be.
You want to put the turnover machine in Mullins behind him?
Well, that's the other. You're right, and so but even just for the sake of the rest of the team,
yes, right.
You can't just accept that indefinitely. So I don't think that I don't think that they have a great option, but I don't think they have no option. But I think why I made a quote unquote big deal of it, I guess, is that it's just how effusive it was. Like he could have within his own sort of optimistic personality come out and say, of course, Sam's he's had a few mistakes. Pat, we're 7-2.
Yeah.
He's done things that have helped us win these games. I'm not worried about it. But it was like, this is craziness to even, I think that's the word, craziness to even think about us not being 100%, behind him. And not only that, this is going to be a spot where we look back and see how he grew from this and became even better. And so
because J.J. McCarthy's not available.
Yes. But in terms of the general sentiment that he's our guy, but the effusiveness of it suggested to me
that's his personality. Don't you think?
Not every time, but But I just thought that made it newsworthy. Like, there's plenty of times when a coach just says, "Oh yeah, I mean, he's he made some mistakes. We'll correct him and move on," and you don't really think twice. But the degree to which that he did it, and the body language, and the and all of that, like suggested to me like this was notable given the recent trend here.
I said today Tuesday.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday then that I would not. I think the head coach was within his rights to not pound off of that game, not to go Zimmer on the bit, because, again, that's not his nature, but to say, guys, we are going to have to batten down the hatches here. There's some things we're going to have to tighten up. Sam Darnold is most of the reason we're in the position we're in. That's undeniable. That what's taken place the last 2 weeks doesn't change that. But no. This is I've been around offense a lot of time. This is not sustainable. We're counting right now on our defense to take the ball away 3 times or 4 times a game, and that's wonderful because we're now number 1 in the league in that category.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's fair to put the defense in that position week after week after week.
And maybe that's being said behind the scenes, but it was notable that in where he appeared to mention Sam, or the only time he appeared to mention Sam in his post-game speech to the team, which was, they put on their social media, he basically gave a much spicier version of what he told us. And so he wants the players to feel the same way. And again, you're right. It's not like McCarthy's on the bench or, there's, plenty of other, teams where the second string, potentially gives you a different option. It's not like you have Mason Rudolph as we get ready for the Titans, who could come in and save the day for Will Levis if needed.
And we can get 5 more picks this week with Levis.
Yeah,
Levis he'll cough it up.
Yes, man. or just fumble. He'll hand it to you in some cases.
That's
at least
true.
He has, and so that there's not that situation, but and you're right, like that he definitely will. If there's a line between that if you go over it, you're being very sunny and optimistic. Like he'll definitely approach that.
He's not going to do. Did you see the game?
Yeah,
he's not going to do the. Did you see?
And so there's not going to be any of that. But like I just thought that that it wasn't even doubling down. It was like quadrupling down after 2 games, 6 turnovers. That was notable.
So Levis starts, right?
That's what we're being told.
We assume it does. I don't even know that it matters. But he is another guy who can, like you said, he can cough up the ball. We need to talk a lot, I think, today about what looks to be a seismic shift in the B-Flow approach when it comes to becoming a head coach again.
Okay.
He went very public with that now in a way that I don't think he did much of last year. You can correct me on that. So are we seeing him declaring to the football world, I'm ready, or I do want to talk about this again. Maybe last year I seemed a little reticent, but it doesn't appear with this comments, was it today or yesterday? Today. That he is reticent at all at this point.
No, he told Adam Schefter on Schefter's podcast that, there's only 32 head coaching jobs out there, and of course he'd like to have one of them, and his family really likes it in Minnesota, and they might have a little resistance to that.
They can stay.
We'll take them, yeah. But he said from a personal standpoint, he absolutely wants that. He went on to say that his time in Miami was not nearly, in his mind, as negative as people think that he believes it was, because I think maybe that was an attempt to push back at the idea that he just got burned out. Like it just wasn't for him. Head coaching wasn't for him. He ended up, as everyone knows, suing the league and the Dolphins. And
where is all that? Still in court.
So the NFL docked the Dolphins for the tampering. Some of the specific things that came out of the lawsuit. There's now a fight going on in terms of whether the dispute should be resolved in the NFL's arbitration process, which is private and with an arbitrator of the NFL's choice. Or in the legal system, and so that it's kind of stalled out. Is basically
so this could go on for another 10 years.
It could
really. That's how these things.
I don't know how long, but it certainly doesn't. Nothing's really happened over the course of this calendar year, and so at the very least, I think he's saying, hey, everybody's thought about the idea. Like this is one of the best performing assistant coaches in the league this year. Is he going to be in consideration? We don't know what the teams who are going to have openings will think. But if to the extent that anyone thought that he had given up on the idea of it or was just being kind of realistic and that no one's going to hire somebody who's suing the league. Like, that's not where his mind is. In the right situation, he absolutely wants to do it.
That's always been the other half of this, is whether teams would feel skittish because of that, the lawsuit and where that stands, even if they liked him, to say, I don't want to mess with it, or that other owners might get annoyed. I mean, you got to be careful because you can't, if you end up in collusion, you got another problem. But is there any reason to believe this time around that if he doesn't get a job, another chance as a head coach in 2025, it'll be because, again, teams are skittish about all that blowback and all that baggage, and they go, I like him, but it's just not worth going down that road.
I think it's fair to assume there'll be some teams who have openings that will feel that way. Well, every year is like 4, 6, 8 openings. Will all 8 teams feel that way? Maybe not. There might be some, but then some of those that are left over might be teams that really want an offensive,
right?
Like your Bears club.
They have to almost.
And so that would either lower him on the priority list or knock him off altogether. Some teams won't want a retread. They won't want somebody who's fresh and has never coached before, and they don't care offense, defense.
True.
And then there'll be some that will have heard what has been said about him by the quarterbacks in Miami when he was the head coach.
That's right.
Tua saying that he was a terrible person, and Ryan Fitzpatrick saying that he broke Tua, and won't do any more background check or talk to any of the people involved, and will just rule him out for that, fair or otherwise. And so then you get, you talk about those Venn diagrams where you have all these competing factors, and will there be will there be a combination of factors in the middle that will support his candidacy? And you're at least down to a smaller percentage of the openings that he would be under consideration for. So I think, I don't think we can declare he'll never be a head coach, or he won't get a head coaching job this year, or that there won't be multiple teams interested. I just think that he's got a lot against him in that candidacy process that would require a team to either have some familiarity with him on a personal level. They already know that he's a good guy. We know these things aren't true, whatever. Or
we don't care about him. We think he's still too good a coach to pass up on.
We already have an established offense and quarterback. Yeah. We need a guy to get in here and get our defense going.
Who's the former Bears head coach who's back with Kansas City?
Matt Nagy.
Did I see something again where some headline where Nagy might be in line? How is it possible? It is exasperating how this league works, I guess, on familiarity. It makes no sense to me that I don't know how old Matt Nagy is. Mm-hmm. Let's say he's
early 50s.
52.
Yeah.
He should not have another chance to be a head coach for another 48 years.
And you don't have any emotional.
Well, there might be some.
That, yeah.
I just don't. It's because I do think it comes at the expense then of other people who never get the first chance. And what are you looking at? And especially when it's at a place where clearly the dominant voice, the guy who runs it and the guy who matters there is Andy Reid.
And whenever anybody leaves, it's the same high perform. You've never really heard anybody say that, the Chiefs are really dragging this year because X coach left or whatever,
right.
And that's because you're right, because of Reid. And so I don't know, we're just getting into the season of the hot seat season, I guess, and the coaching carousel season, where we start making lists of people who are likely to get interviews, and this Flores comments today kind of start that.
It is interesting.
Get in right at that time, more or less, as the second half of the season begins. But I don't know that Matt Nagy is leading a lot of teams.
I hope not.
That list.
Some savagery coming in, which we'll get to after the top of the hour break. Some ripping me, some ripping you.
Yep.
We got more to get to on the Vikings, more to get to on the NFC North and any other sort of, sometimes Seifert's got stuff stuck in his craw. It's got to be drawn out of him a little bit, but we can get to it. We have time.
I try to just get along.
That's what you try mainly to do. But again, it's a little fraudulent because you've got an impish side that does find a way to sort of stick the needle in from time to time. Tom Crean will join us at 4:30.